Welcome to another video by Dr. Econ. Today what I want to talk about is the startling information concerning the state of the consumer. Right now, the consumer appears to be pretty broke. So when I say the consumer is broke, let's look at a few numbers that illustrate what's really going on. For one, we know that inflation is high, and I'm going to quickly review those numbers. We know that personal savings is beginning to drop, that credit card balances are rising, and that delinquency rates are also increasing on those credit cards. And as a result of those conditions, banks are beginning to pull back or increase their requirements for consumer lending, which is kind of a normal thing that banks do when they see cracks in the economy and they see people who are maybe struggling but don't show it on a credit report yet. So they increase their requirements in order to weed out the people that are kind of at the bottom layer and have the greatest potential to be affected by the economy. So let's look at some of the data. What's happening in inflation already, my previous video went over that. Food is up over 10% from last year. Energy to heat our homes, those three categories, fuel oil, electricity, and utilities, are up over 25% for two of them and 12%, almost 12% for the third one. And then if you wanted to take that vacation that you'd planned on during the COVID lockdowns, but check on airplane fares and such, you'll find that they're up over 14%. So the economy is not being kind to us. And you might want to see my video on how the Fed has failed us in that regard. They're not getting control of inflation, and it's a good chance that they were the ones that originally caused it. But moving on, let's go look at what's happening now with savings. With the consumer now in a situation where they're having to spend more out of their budget, and the fact that the federal government gave out checks to people during the COVID lockdowns, you can see that when they gave out those checks, here you see a couple peaks, a lot of that money made it into savings. Well, the problem with some people then is they get used to spending that money. And getting used to spending that money means that it's hard to turn off that spending when the money isn't there anymore. The other situation is we have a group of people who lost their job during the lockdowns. And those jobs haven't necessarily all come back yet. And now we're seeing the savings drain out of the savings accounts. And they're now at their lowest point percentage-wise since the 2008 recession, that was caused by the mortgage crisis. So savings is declining as a general aspect. So let's go look at credit card balances. Now, when your savings is gone, a lot of people, if they just can't keep off the spending, will then go to their credit cards. Now, here's where it gets really, really startling, because starting in February of 2021 to January of 2023, the consumer has amassed an increase of $216 billion worth of money put on credit cards. Now, understand that when you divide 216 by 986, we've seen almost a 20% increase in the amount of money put on credit. That's getting pretty concerning. And then when you look at the fact that delinquency rates at that point are starting to rise. Now, historically, they're not at the high point by any means. But if you take into account from the second quarter of 2021 to now, the percentage of delinquencies has continued to rise and has, gone from 1.55% to about little over 2%. So that doesn't appear to be all that much of a difference, but it signals that there is some stress in the credit card market. And as a result of that, bankers are pretty sensitive to those numbers. Banks tend to start withholding their funds for consumer loans. So either they're finding less consumers that are meeting their requirements, Or in this case, it shows that there are less banks that are willing to lend like they were lending before. And a percentage now, about 12%, have increased their requirements to lend, which means in this one, they're less willing to lend based on prior actions. So they've tightened their lending requirements. Now you can see that they tightened lending requirements just after 2020 during the COVID crisis, and they tightened the lending really bad at the end, during the middle of the mortgage crisis. Now, you see these trends happening, and what you see is the consumer, which is the engine, the driver for the American economy, beginning to sputter, beginning to lessen and lessen the amount of money that they're spending, which means that Walmart and Target and all those places that consumers spend money are going to show less profits. When they show less profits, they start reporting less profit on their financial statements, and then their stock goes down, and we start seeing the stock market also go down, which then impacts our pension funds and our savings in our 401ks and our general savings as the money starts flowing out of the stock market and into other safe havens. Now, what all this means is it really is precluding both a severe stock market downturn and potentially a severe rise in the potential for a recession. Now, there's been a lot of debate on whether we're in a recession now or not, but the fact that we're headed into a downturn suggests that we are going to be in a recessionary cycle for, a period of time. Now, it could be a short recession like during COVID, as you see on the screen here, or it could be a longer recession like 2008 that lasted nearly a year and a half. It could even be longer, depending on how big the correction is that the Fed needs to do in order to get rid of all the surplus money that they put into the economy. In any case, the consumer is going to suffer as inflation continues to be hard to control, and as less and less buying power feeds into the market, they're not going to be able to pay their bills. There's going to be more bankruptcies. This is going to affect the housing market. On and on and on it goes as it ripples through the economy. So here's the takeaway from this video. If you can avoid debt during this particular critical time, it behooves you to do so. Getting into a problem with debt seriously hampers your ability to survive a recession such as one that is coming. The entire monetary system is in an imbalance. And as you watch more of this channel, I'll continue to explain where those imbalances are and where you're seeing the facts and data to support those claims. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that if it has been helpful, you hit that like button and get this video out to more people. Also, if you find this channel valuable, please subscribe, and we'll keep putting more videos out, at least on a weekly basis, and hopefully a little bit more often. Thank you. Talk to you later.